So today's session is all about rethinking your staffing strategy. So before we even get into this, show of hands, who feels like they have no staffing challenges at all right now?
Perfect.
Good and bad. I'm really sorry to hear that, but good. That will make this relevant, right? Who's using a local temp staffing agency to help? Who's using any sort of flexible? Okay. Anybody using any app-based flexible staffing? Okay. Anybody using any other creative, scrappy way to get staffing in the door? Yes. Okay, good. It's going to be a good discussion then, right? I think there's a lot that we're excited to share, and I think a lot going on in the market that will be really relevant to today. So we'll talk about rethinking your staffing strategy. This slide turned into more of an eye, sort of one of those weird magic eye things, if you can pick out our names, extra bonus here. So I'm Kathy Harden. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at InstaWork. We're a flexible staffing partner. I know some of you in the room have used us, and for those of you who haven't, excited to chat about what we do today. And I will let both John and Leslie introduce themselves.
I'm Leslie LaSorsa. I'm a CSEP. I am the General Manager of Crave Catering in Little Austin, Texas.
It's not so little anymore.
I know.
John Crisafulli, I'm the president of Behind the Scenes Catering. We're based in San Diego, and we cater large and small events in San Diego and all over the United States and globe.
Great. All right. So we will jump right in. And the three big takeaways from today's session, one is talking about the new trends and what hourly workers are asking for or what we think they need to be successful in catering. The second is discovering how to quickly train, right? So there's one challenge on getting staff. There's another challenge on how to train that staff to be ready for that first shift. And then third, how to leverage flexible staffing models, right? Most of you in the room already raised your hand, and so hopefully that you can hear some new insights or what other people are doing to really leverage those flexible staffing models to get ahead of consumer demand. So changing workforce trends, excited to talk about this one. So we are seeing 3.5 million people have left the US workforce since March of 2020, and over 1 million of those were in the hospitality industry, which I think is obviously where all of us are feeling it, right? Everybody in this room is feeling that pain of people truly leaving the industry. And what we're seeing is that that's creating a labor shortage, and it's also potentially changed the expectations of the people who have stayed or the people that are coming newly in to the hospitality industry. And so a recent study that we did at InstaWork saw that 83% of people that we asked reported flexibility or work flexibility as being really, really important to them. And then a large percentage of them also suggested higher pay, right? Whether it's coming from their full-time caterer that they work with or through a flexible solution is really, really important to them. And so we pause here and have a discussion. I'm curious how the two of you have seen maybe either your full-time employee expectations change or flexible employees change. Like, what's happening? What are people asking for now in the last couple of years?
Well, they're definitely wanting more money. They've obviously seen it in all of the different retail, the restaurants, the caterers, everything. They're seeing that everybody's getting more money, and so then that puts pressure on our own staff wanting more money, and they definitely want more flexibility, for sure. But they're all of our staff are very happy to be doing their job. So just there's a lot of different things that they're wanting. They love being a part of the team. They love that we kept them working throughout the entire 2.5 years. So. I think they're appreciative, yet they want more money. That's the bottom line.
I think money certainly would be what we see probably number one factor that people are looking. They want to earn more, plus the inflationary pressure and everything. But what we've also found is there has to be more than that. So yes, they can get some of them $30, $40 an hour when you're desperate for staffing and to fill positions. But they also need to feel like they're a part of something. So whereas, say, pre-COVID, when there was tons of people out there, and yes, we were still struggling to get staff for some events because everything was so busy, you could get away with using temporary staff and agencies to fill a void. At the same time, you had your kind of current staff that were trained and kind of knew what they were doing and you were confident in. Now, we're having to bring it all together almost into the kind of the one family. So whenever there's a large event or any kind of event really, we're not going to any one source. So it's not one staffing option. It may be an online app. It may be a local staffing agency. It may be somebody else in the market that you're friendly with, that you kind of pull your resources in for those events. And then once everyone's there at your event or even prior to it, they have to be made to feel a part of something as a whole. yes, they like the money and they want that flexibility and so forth, but they also want to be appreciated when they're on site, get the information even potentially prior to even getting on site, so they can kind of do the job and know what they're doing. And you need to make the effort now, which, guilty enough, we didn't do as much probably prior to, when you're on site. Check in with them, make sure they got something to eat. If it's a long day, make sure that they're not treated like, oh, you're from the staffing agency, you go pull trash, and you use your regular people to do kind of the more important jobs. It needs to be more of a team effort, and they need to feel like they're a part of something bigger than what they are. So we're spending a lot more time on that. We actually have people now on site at these events that are just handling, not just checking in, checking out, but they're constantly checking in with the staff to make sure they have the tools they need to do what they're doing, the direction was made clear to them, what they need to be doing, what they know they're going to do next after they're done. So you have to be much more proactive than we did in the past.
How do you handle, right? So everybody wants more money, right, currently? And to your point, I think we've talked about this, right? People are seeing what people are making out in the market, whether it's in hospitality or elsewhere. I think they're recognizing their worth, which is in some ways is a wonderful thing, right? I think hospitality is finally maybe overdue in getting the respect that it deserves, but it also creates a real pinch internally for how you think about paying your team. How have you managed that? How do you think about when people are saying they want more money or people are coming in flexibly? How have you managed that internally?
Well, first, I somewhat was proactive, at least in my mind, that a year or two ago, I definitely rethought how much we were charging so that I didn't feel the pinch when the inflation would start to happen or when I really needed to start using staffing companies. As a part of the whole thought process, I'm not adverse to using the staffing companies. I've pretty much embraced it as part of our makeup. So I've always had that thought process, and it's of course more, quote unquote, more expensive. So I definitely put the pricing out there, and so if you haven't already rethought your pricing on how you're billing your own clients, definitely do it now, or make it so that it doesn't feel so bad when you feel like you need to go out and start including those folks. And then you were talking about like the staff, our current staff? Yeah, so then talking to our current staff, you can't feel bad that the people who are there and have been committed to your company, you've got to feel thoughtful about the fact that just because you used to pay them 15 or 18 bucks an hour, it's not that they don't deserve more. It's I always pay for the job, not the person, but the people have made it, and their job may have evolved, and they may be doing more responsibility. So you really do have to kind of keep up with all that, and then you have to look at the inflation and marry it, and just make it. You just kind of have to. More than just an annual analysis, you kind of have to do more of a quarterly or a semi-annual analysis and really keep up with what the pressure is, because they will walk for $2, and $2 on an 8-hour day is 16 bucks. Does that really make that big of a difference when you're talking about good people who make your jobs run? So,
great. Okay, good. So things are changing, right? A lot of this may have been true before, right, COVID, but I think more expectations are changing. People are asking for more. And so one big piece is how do you find the workers? And we'll talk about flexibility here in a second. One is also once you've actually found somebody to come do a shift, right, to work a wedding, how do you get them ready for the shift? And how do you make sure that they know where to go, that they're ready to prepare? Curious for what both of you are doing to help, especially as so many new people are coming into the hospitality industry brand new. Maybe they haven't worked at other events. How are you helping prepare them for their first shift?
Well, the good thing is technology has kind of come into its own. I'd say pre-COVID, it existed, but people weren't always using it to its full extent. With all the different flexible kind of staffing companies and apps and models that are out there, it makes it much easier now to communicate through text, through email and so forth, to get people the information they need prior to the event so they know what their expectations are when they get there. And the more information you can get to them prior to, or even once they arrive on site, for those that don't get the email or text, which happens, it's important because then the expectations are already set when they arrive on site. In this day, right now, in this day and age, we're asking our staff, whether it's a temporary staff or your permanent staff, to do so much more than they were asked to do in the past. So even when we're talking about pay rates and so forth, you have to get it in your mind that, yes, some people are getting paid $24, $26, $28 an hour now, which to us is crazy when we were at 18 or 20 before. But when you look at comparatively, most likely your staffing, we have less people on site to do the same jobs that we would have done kind of pre-COVID. So when you add it up, you're still covering your costs, especially if you raised your rates. And it's the new reality that people should be compensated more. Their money doesn't go as far as it used to with the inflationary pressure that's out there. So you have to understand that we all go, it's crazy, you're making $30 an hour. Well, are they though? Because they're still paying tax at a higher rate, so I might put them in a new tax bracket. If you look at it from their perspective, it's probably commensurate with the job that you're asking them to do. So.
But they still look at the actual number. They all talk, you all know that. They're all talking to each other. And so if the staffing company person is making $25 an hour and my staff is making $22 an hour, they don't care that they don't care that they're getting their taxes paid, that we give them some other benefits. They don't care. It's literally a $3 gap and they freak out over it. I literally will have my own staff say, well, I would go to, an event if you would pay me $25 an hour. And so my accountant doesn't love it, but I've implemented a 2-tier rate. So if I've got folks working in the kitchen, they're working a 40-hour, overall they work 40 hours, I have a 2-tier so that they get a $5 kicker to go work at an event if they choose to do it. I don't force them to, but if they want to, they can. And so that way I have 2 tiers. Again, accountant doesn't love it, but that's the way it is.
Great.
And you talked about what information. So
Yeah.
I was talking about, so we actually don't just give a BEO to our staff, and we kind of do like a narrative. It's got a little bit more of a detailed timeline with more specifics, not just when does it start, when does it end. We give them the menu, we give them all the, the allergy stuff. We give them bar recipes, if that's necessary, just so that's all in one place. We give them information about the inventory that's coming to the event from a rental company perspective. And so we give them this whole narrative so that they know the size of the event, the style of the event, the purpose of the event. And we send that out to them. We send it out to our own staff, and then we also, all of our vendor partners, we make sure that they also are able to send that out to their staff. And then we also bring hard copies on to the event so that they're not just walking into this blank piece of paper, I'm just showing up. So they come, they know that they're a part of the team, they know that they have some information to work with, and they're more boots on the ground and ready to go and more connected to the event.
Got it. Great. So there's the pre-shift information, right? Knowing what I'm getting into, where to show up, sort of what to expect. What about skill set training? Are either of you doing anything sort of like pre-shift, train them on anything specific, or are you just sort of handling that live and on site, and how are you managing that?
It's a little of both. We would love to be able to get people trained like we used to, where they would come in and we would run through kind of service protocols and so forth. Now a lot of it's being done on site, so when we can, we're having people on site that are shadowing, so they may not have a specific role as far as managing for the event itself, but we'll have somebody come in to help work with new people that are maybe setting tables to show them how the table settings are going as we're actually doing it live. We would love to have the opportunity to bring them in, like I said, sooner, but it's just not the reality to get people to do that. So again, it takes maybe it's an extra person or two depending on the size of the event, but it goes so much faster when you're on site. If you're setting a table, like on Friday we had a 600-person gala or 700-person gala, it's a lot of glassware, it's a lot of flatware, it's a lot of everything on the table. And when you just kind of set them out, what happens is you have 4, 5, 6, whatever, 8 people all doing it, even though you've showed them the table and this is how it goes, they're all kind of doing it their own way. And so then you're spending the time to go back and kind of adjust and redo it all. So if you can think ahead and say, hey, we need somebody on site and you can find that person, 1 or 2 people on site to help guide them as they go and they're checking the work as they're doing it, it goes so much faster and you're not wasting all that time and getting crushed on your timeline.
Such a luxury to have a day before.
I know.
And we're doing similar. We're actually elevating our core staff to not necessarily a manager or a captain, but to a lead. And we've talked to them about it. This is one way that we've justified, even giving them more money as well. But they're like our staffing company leads. So they'll be the core person that works for our company, and then we assign our vendor partner staff to the different leads. So that's how we're kind of doing like the trickle down effect of training on the job. Honestly, the staffing company folks, they may change even up to day of, so it's very difficult to do any type of pre-training. So it's on the job.
Got it. Great. Yeah, we've heard a lot of feedback at Instawork about what you're both describing, right? And so part of what we're investing in, which we're piloting, is this concept of a training shift, right? Like, can we have somebody come in and just do training, whether because they haven't done maybe an event like this before, and or because you want them, like, this is really specific to how Crave wants to manage this, and so I'm gonna have you come on site, I'm gonna show you, and then we're gonna try to get you back, right, to come work for shifts with us again. So I do think that so much of it has to be managed live and on site, but if we can help invest and get people ready for this, I think that's great.
Let me say one other
Yeah.
thing. Another avenue, we were talking about technology, and we started this, again, pre-COVID, and it's now starting to come back. When we're doing especially large-scale events, we've also, I mean, everyone has a cell phone, and everyone loves to make TikTok videos and all these other things. It's very easy to make a quick service training video on your phone and send it out in a clip on an email or even post it online and so forth for staff. And we started doing that, and we would actually pay people to make sure that they watched it. And we're able to track who got on, who watched it, and so forth. And then they would get a bonus on their check, the next check, that they've kind of completed these different training scenarios. They're not long. People, especially today's day and age, they don't have an attention span. So think TikTok, think it's like 2 minutes at the most, maybe 3 minutes. So it's not this long 15-minute oration with questions and so forth, but it's kind of straight to the point, and it touches on really quick topics, easy topics to share with them. And it's worked incredibly well, especially with the kind of younger set, so.
Cool.
That's really smart. Yeah, I think so helpful. Anything you can do, right? Even just that core skill set, so helpful to get them to just watch it like, oh, I see, I clear from this direction, or whatever those things are. Yeah, great. Okay, good. Speaking of bonuses, is there anything either of you are doing? So obviously you go into the investment of training somebody on site. It's so much more helpful if they'll come back and work for you again, right? Whether it's any of the staffing agencies or flexible staffing solutions like Instawork. Is there anything you're doing from a bonus perspective or anything else to sort of get those same individuals to come back?
So from a staffing company perspective, I haven't really cracked the code on that, except for by using the ones that use technology, and if they don't, even just like providing the information of who's awesome and who's really not the right fit for our company. For our own staff, we have definitely, especially like fourth quarter of last year was rough. We were kind of kicking back into gear. It was wedding season. Corporate America still hadn't come back, but we still just could not get staff. And then again, we did it again this first part of the year. But we did do a bonus program for our core staff. If they worked X number of events, we kind of looked at it like what made sense, and then we did a nice bonus at the end, and people loved it. I mean, that's like a piggy bank for them. It's like getting an IRS check back. So they really hung in there, and they showed up for like 10, 12 events in a 3-month period, which is great for us to make sure that we have our folks coming back.
That's great. Good.
Certainly, each state's a little different as far as compensation and how you do it, especially if you do tips or gratuities or that type of thing. California is the worst of all of them, but really bad. But they have in the past when we used agencies, they were always getting paid a higher rate, and I think Instawork, I think you even have a thing where you can pay like a tipped rate or a non-tipped rate or whatnot. Doesn't matter what the rate we're paying. We now include all of our temporary staff that are coming through any of the agency profiles or apps or whatnot. They're included in our tip pool, which comes out of the company's bottom line. It's not really a gratuity from the client per se, but it's we put a kind of a service charge pool aside, and it's pretty significant per event, and it adds up. And then we divide that out by the hours that anyone worked, and we include the temporary staffing people in that. Some of them make it easier for us, and some don't. I know Instawork, we can put it in individually, and there's a couple of our local agencies that allow that. Some of them don't, and they don't want to hit the tax roll, and so we end up having to cut individual checks for them, for the employees. But it keeps it under the 600, so it doesn't affect us. So I think that is another thing that's kind of made them feel like they're a part. And what happens is they go and talk to other people and say, hey, we were working for behind the scenes and we got tipped out, like didn't expect it, even though they were getting paid kind of a decent wage. So look, money talks, like it or not. And again, it's twofold. It not only helps them know that they're a part of something and that they want to get to them to come back to work for you and sign up for shifts, but at the same time, it makes them feel like they're part of the team. So
I think it's so smart.
That's
and I think we talk a lot about loyalty, right? And sort of how do you get your full-time employees to come back? I think that same concept of loyalty also exists within flexible staffing, right? Even if they're not a full-time employee, they're choosing each day and each week where to pick up shifts, right? And I think we hear a lot at Instawork. Those things can make a difference, right? We enable our partners to set up rosters, right? They're like, we like you, you like us, like let's make sure that you're seeing these shifts first. Those tips, all of that can go a long way. So I think we think of loyalty mostly from a full-time staff perspective. I think we're certainly seeing when people have a really good experience on site and they feel part of something, they're eager to come back, even if it's part-time or even if it's picking up a shift here and there. Which again, if you've gone through the effort to train them, if you can get those same people to come back and be part of your ecosystem, all the better, right?
And also, we were talking about this earlier, but the people who are coming to work these shifts, I would say always start with the thought process that these people are like presidents of their own company, or there's some high-level people, because they really are. There's a lot of people who are not just shift workers because they can't get a job. Some of these people are doing it because they love to get out about in the community. They want to see new things. They want to meet new people. I have had really high-level people. It's the oddest thing to me because, I mean, it's a hard job. But they're like, yeah. And so when you treat them with a lot of respect and inquire about them, just kind of, chit-chat, beginning of shifts and things like that, you'll find that there's some really cool people that are coming to do this. So always expect that there are really cool people coming to work with you, treat them really well, and they will have a great deal of respect for your company, just that you didn't treat them like somebody that couldn't get a job. So,
great. Okay, good. All right, so training. A lot of topics around that, right? I think so much we'll continue to learn, right, of just where does the environment go. Would be great to be able to train people for 3 weeks before every event, but we don't have that luxury. So yeah, last big topic, really leveraging flexible staffing models. And so I know we've all spent a lot of time talking about this. It's obviously something that we think about all the time at InstaWork, which is how do you really make that flexible model, whether it's a traditional staffing agency that's local, whether it's a company like InstaWork, whether it's flexibility within your own full-time staff. How have each of you thought about leveraging that flexibility and making it part of your, not necessarily just last minute, oh my gosh, it's Friday and I don't have somebody for tomorrow, but part of your longer term strategy?
We're using I talked to them about this earlier, it's kind of the toolkit and everything's on the table. So we're hitting it at all levels, whether it's using companies like InstaWork, we use local staffing agencies. We have some local partners in our market that have off-season, so from where we're usually busy. So we have the Del Mar racetrack, which is a horse racing track. They have different seasons and so forth. When he's busy, we're typically, not always, but sometimes we have some flexibility and we'll share staff with them. They share their staff with us when we have like Miramar Air Show, which is a big air show in San Diego. So we're sharing staff that way with people that, again, we're friendly with. There's also, I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but if you're looking for some more permanent staff to bring on your team, there's it's not new, it's been around, but there's an EB-3 visa if you're willing to invest. It's not a crazy amount. It's about $10,000, $12,000 you'll probably pay for the position, but they're guaranteed to work for you for 2 years. And if you look into it, there's some law firms that'll do it, and so we're recruiting staff even offshore. And what we're finding is we've been interviewing lots of people locally all over the United States for some of these positions, but we're finding the work ethic's not always there. And the expectations are extremely high. So we found some people offshore that work on our Olympic Games and some other events with us that we can have them apply for a job from various countries, and they can come in. It doesn't mean that you have to pay them a ton of money. It all goes through the Department of Labor and so forth. There's a process. But it takes 8 months to a year to finish the process, and then you all of a sudden have a worker or a good worker that is really interested because they're coming in and they're getting, them and their entire family get a green card to do that. Wow. So used to be that these were all capped. They've pulled the cap off of it. And so it's something to look into. It's another avenue if you're looking for, like I said, more permanent people and positions. But you got to be flexible, like you're saying. You can't. It's never going to be, one solution is never going to solve the problem. And the other thing we talked about earlier was you got to get out there early with when you have events or there's, even if it's, you got to look at your calendar, not just a month out or 2 months out. You should probably look at your calendar the entire year. Mm-hmm. Any large events that you know you have on the calendar, you probably need to get out there and get on top of it before your competitors in the market do, because you want to fill those spots as soon as you can. So.
With the best people.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the best people, for sure. And then, so definitely, like we are about 50% weddings, 50% corporate America in Austin. Finally, they're all starting to come visit Austin because we don't have any rules. And so corporate America really woke up like on March 5th, and they started banging in, and their lead time is 2 weeks to 4 weeks for 500 to 1,000 people. So as soon as we started talking to these folks, we started putting them out into our universe, and we have a full scope look. So we have our internal staff, we have 2 to 3 vendor partners, and then our final resort is also our in our market, our other catering friends. During COVID, all the owners of all the catering companies started talking and becoming supportive. And yeah, we're competitors, but we all have various different schedules as well. So we look at it very comprehensively, and we put it out there. As soon as a corporate event comes in that we think is over 50%, we do put it out there, because when you wait down to the 2-week mark when they're finally signing a contract, that's starting to get a little too late. So at least 3 weeks so that we can be in front of our other competitors. When we're busy, usually there's like some big festivals and things like that. So those weekends when we're busy, then everybody's busy. And we definitely want to be as competitive as possible and get out there in front of it all and feed your people. They love food.
It matters.
It does. It really matters.
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
I think that sorry, go ahead.
I would say the other thing that would have to do more with your current staff, and that maybe some of you have dealt with this, but this whole work from home concept, remote working. So you may have been asked that by people in your office, salespeople, accounting, and whatnot. That's another. I was telling them earlier. I have a very strong opinion on it. I don't think it's a great idea. I think it affects the culture of the company, but at the same time, there's just a reality that we're dealing with, and so I can't say that some of our staff aren't doing that. So it's something that you need to consider and think about, because as far as staff retention and so forth, as owners and managers of these catering companies, we're going to need to embrace, just because we've always done something like we've done in the past, we're going to need to embrace some of this technology and some of these, the ability that, I mean, think about some of these young people that want to work remotely. That's all they know. Like, we grew up that, no, you go to work, you pay your time, you punch the clock, you do the thing, and everyone works together, and yeah, it's a team. They don't know that. They're growing up, and they're in college right now, and they went to college remotely. They've done everything on their phones or on their laptops, or their iPads. And so to them, when we say you can't do that, they go, what dark ages are you living in? So you need to, we need to open our minds, myself included, but you need to open your minds to things it may look differently. You may have to, allow a couple days off site for whether it's like some of your office staff or whatnot. But just keep in mind when you're doing that what you let one person do, then the other people are going to want to do the same. So you have to strike a good balance between what you're allowing and what you're not. So.
Yeah, I think that concept, again, of flexibility, right? Whether it means I want to work a part-time schedule or I want to work some days from home, right? Mm-hmm. I think that certainly, I think, became a really hot topic during the pandemic, but I think that's a reality that's not going to go away, right? I think that desire for flexibility will continue. And yeah, I think both of what you were describing, I think that planning is so important, which can be really hard to do, right? When people are coming back online and they're only giving you 2 weeks notice. But I think especially when you're deploying flexible solutions, the farther out you can engage them, or a company like InstaWork, the better, right? I think some people fall into the trap of thinking, I'll wait until Friday to know that I don't have anybody for Saturday, and then I'll click the oh no button. And obviously works much better if you sort of predict out a week or two or more to sort of know what's on your calendar and to plan in that you'll probably need flexible help to augment your team.
I don't know where this fits in, but just talking about like all the different vendor partners, I mean, to the extent that you haven't gone deep on working with other vendor partners, it's always, they all work differently, and so definitely taking it from the very beginning of the process to the very end of the process of how that vendor partner works, like who are you talking to, what tools do they have, can they rank their staff, is there support on the day of when you're looking for the staff and they can't find you or they're not even en route, to all the way down to the billing. Just make sure you know how your vendor partners work. Whoever your like I have a person who does deal with all the she coordinates all the different staffing, and then I have my accounting person, and then I have the people who are the event managers on site, and they're impacting all of those people throughout the whole process. So you want to make sure that you have set the tone and that you understand how they all work. They're all different. Understand what they're going to get, what your staff are going to get paid versus what you're paying them. If there's any surge pricing like Uber, but just make sure you understand all of that and that it works for your whole company, and that you don't get caught, on the back end paying for things that you didn't know, or not knowing where your staff are. It's awesome to be able to have a contact number, to be able to call and say, hey, where are they? And this company has technology that says they are en route, they will be there in 5 minutes, that sort of thing. Or they can reach them and help them navigate the gate code or something like that. So.
And avoid mixed messaging, because that's another thing that frustrates staff. Because each staffing agency or source may do it differently, and so you want to make sure that the message you're relaying is to the right person that came from the right agency. So
that's great. Yeah, I think one last topic on this that I would love to double click on. So both of you have mentioned, right, how important culture is and how likely it is that you'll be using flexible solutions, right? That like the likelihood of having a full-time team that will last for years is probably unlikely in today's day and age. How do you think about that culture, right? And like having your core team integrate with different agencies or flexible solutions that are coming on site, and how have you managed those moments?
You know, I was just thinking about the experience of us going on site, and like the venue has a bar staff, and sometimes they're really friendly and sometimes they're not. Our staff, we make sure that our staff, if they are Crave, that they are embracing everybody else. We are now on the Crave team that day. So there is no us or them. We're all there to do an awesome job. So, and that tone is set from the top. I don't know if I answered the question, but that's one way I wanted to express it, because it's real important. There's not, like he was saying, don't give them the worst jobs. Integrate them. Figure out what their talents are. You can figure out pretty quickly how skilled some people are, and maybe how new some other people are, and that they need to be, in a little core team, how to set a table and that sort of thing. So just making sure that there's a good tone set from the top, and it's your event managers and anybody who's in charge of anybody else. They just all have to have that camaraderie, that the whole end goal is that your client and their guests experience an awesome event that reflects your company.
yeah, I think that, like I said, people, as far as technology goes, people were resistant. Some people were at the beginning when these new apps came out, and look, InstaWork and some of the other apps that are out there, they're new companies too, so they're growing and they're learning. But the great thing is there's a lot of data that you can glean from that they're able to see and they're able to share with you about what the expectations are, what people need, and what they get out of it from the worker standpoint on their side, and what we're getting out of it on our side. And the good thing is that technology, it changes and it grows, and when you learn, you can make it better and you can make it better. So communication between not only you and the staffing agency is important, but we as caterers need to let these agencies know, and these apps managers know, and software engineers and everything else, this is what we need. Mm-hmm. If you could do this for us, that would be really helpful. Mm-hmm. So that's how the tip thing got added, and that's how all these the kind of surge pricing kind of has come and gone. And so there's the communication is super important with wherever you're getting your staff from, and then, like I said, on the same side as with the employees themselves, like she's saying, when they're on site. Communication is how this whole thing works, and being open-minded and saying, hey, okay, just because it didn't work at this one event doesn't mean that there's a problem with it. It means that there needs to be something maybe needs to be fixed in either how you approached it, how you used the service. But I don't think any of us, if you really think you're going to get away with it, we're going to get back to the point where all your staff is yours, trained full-time on your payroll. The likelihood of that for most companies is pretty low. Mm-hmm. So you need to use all the tools in the toolkit, and you need to kind of embrace some of that. So.
And I think we're also seeing, and I'm hearing from other folks, and I've experienced it, but staff are coming from other locations. And I've hired a staffing company that had multiple locations, and they brought people in from San Antonio or Dallas, and I thought, oh, that's cool. And then I actually experienced through a staffing app that they on their own came from Houston, and then they told us that we pay better in Austin. So they came and they put themselves up in a hotel, and they grouped themselves. So that kind of experience, I think, is going to be fostered and facilitated a little bit more through some of the staffing apps, because we're telling them that they maybe need to help facilitate that a little bit more. But some people are turning it into a way to have a vacation. They go on a vacation, then they can pick up some work and then finish their vacation, and they can go to where there are golf tournaments or big events that are happening, and then they might also pick up other work working for folks like us that are doing our weddings and what have you. So I just think it's a really it's a really great way to like continuously grow the ability to get, fresh, good people out there working and learning.
Yeah, I think both of you are spot on, and I appreciate you saying that. I think feedback has been so helpful, so grateful to anyone in this room who has used InstaWork and given feedback, or who has not used InstaWork and given feedback. It really has led to so many changes, and I think we're all sitting at this intersection of what do we do next, right? What are worker expectations, and how do we attract and retain the right people, even in a flexible manner, to come be great partners for all of you? And so really always appreciate the feedback, and it certainly is, we've got 300 plus people now at InstaWork who are really engaged with and dedicated to making sure that we're sitting, really understanding and sharing back the data. Here's what we're seeing both overall and in your market, and how do we react to interesting trends like, wow, people are willing to travel in a caravan and go work somewhere for a week, right, with other shift workers, so that's great. So last question for both of you before we get to full set of questions. Either is there anything that you learned, right, we're facing this new normal, however you want to call it, right? Is there anything that you would say you made a mistake early on in trying to crack this new code that you would want to share, and or is there any way that you think all of what's happened in the last 2 years has maybe changed the industry for the better that you're trying to harness within your business?
I would say my biggest mistake was underestimating my competitors and being late to the game for an event or a week or something like that. And so just all my peers are smart, and they're all doing the same darn thing in my market. So just not being late.
I think COVID did what the recession probably back in 2008 did. I think it cleared the decks a bit, as far as not necessarily from a competitor standpoint, but more from kind of made it very clear who was in it and liked hospitality and liked customer service and enjoyed what they did, and were willing to had the work ethic to put the time and effort in, and those that were just kind of playing around the edges. We were lucky enough to be able to keep all of our staff, and we actually added staff during COVID. We ended up getting some sizable contracts that with local and state authorities that helped kind of drive business. It wasn't the normal business we did, but it kept us all busy. And you could see very quickly those that would rather just had taken that unemployment check, especially in California, versus those that were wanted to work and didn't want to sit home. So I think from that perspective, we've learned a lot. We've learned how to treat employees probably better and make them part of the family, so to speak. And we've also learned that what motivates people, it's money, but it's not always just money. So all of those kind of lessons that we've taken from seeing how human nature and how people react to stressful situations, and when you put more work on people, what they're willing to do to kind of make it happen, we've kind of taken a lot of those to heart. And honestly, before, we were not paying that close attention to some of that stuff. So we've learned, as from a management side, a team, of what we need to do to keep people motivated and keep them interested. And I think we're seeing it now, how we're able to attract more people to kind of come into the fold. And but it's going to be a challenge. It's not over. We all think COVID's over, but it's not over. The results of what we all have gone through the last 2 years, we're going to see that in the next couple of 2-3 years to come at least. So you got to be smart, you got to be flexible, and you got to be able to kind of, just because you've always done something a certain way doesn't mean you can't change. So you got to be able to be flexible.
That's great. All right. Any questions for any of the three of us, and or, since we're all here to learn from each other, are there any things that you've done in any of these topics that you think would be helpful to share for the group? And yes, why don't we start here? Yeah.
Lisa Richards from Picking People in San Diego. Legal breaks that the law demands. We always make sure that our employees take their 30-minute break. What's the deal with the staffing agencies when everybody gets breaks and gets fed, whether they're our staff or InstaWork staff? What are they paid straight through? Are they supposed to clock out? It's a real mixed message, because our staff clocks out for 30 minutes and the temporary staff refuses. So what's the best way to handle that?
Yeah. So I would say it's obviously state by state, right? And so we would ask, obviously, if the state requires a break, we would ask that you give the same break, right, to the to the flexible workers. And so, yeah, I think it sounds like it may be a communication thing. So our goal is to have, however you're managing it on site, be what the flexible staff is working through. And so if you're asking them to log out or clock out for lunch, they should be doing that. And if that's not happening, I'd get in touch with your account manager or call someone. We can either set up the details so that it's really clear in the app, and or make sure that it's really clear for them when they're on site. But should be able to mirror exactly how you're managing the staff on site.
So we can demand it.
Yes. Yep.
I just don't want it to come back to us.
Yes. No, get a hold of us and we will help make sure that it's really clear for people, right? And each caterer potentially does it differently. And so if we're not clear about it when we're sending them on site, they may not fully understand what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you.
And Lisa, I would add one thing to that, being from California. I would strongly recommend that, I know we clock them in and clock out, you definitely need to record that, but I would plan in budget that you pay everyone for their half-hour break. So if you think you're doing it to save money on your budget, that's the last thing you want to do in California, because what'll happen is if you don't pay them, then you're opening yourself up to a lot more scrutiny of when they clocked in and out, if they did it by hand, who signed for it, what supervisor. There's lots of legal challenges with that going on in the state right now. So do keep track of it, but I would budget when you're pitching it that you're budgeting to pay that half-hour break. It's a paid break, even though they're taking a break.
That's why we went to breaks, because when we were paying people for breaks.
And
We
Yeah.
went to unpaid
taking
breaks, because we were not hitting the times.
Right.
In the state of California. Doesn't matter if you pay them for the break, they still have to
Take it,
legally
yeah.
sign 5-hour max point. So we learned that by having them clock out
Yep.
and take a 31-minute break,
Yep.
we avoided any legal backlash with the.
Yeah, I'm saying don't not do that, but if you anyone ever made a mistake and they were off by even the 5-minute thing, you're opening yourself up. But if you paid them, then there's no penalty for that. It's just that the timing was off, or the penalty's lower, I should say.
My name is Lucas Mendieta. I'm owner of Cutting Edge Elite. We're a national staffing agency as well. One thing that we did that is different that we really noticed that people have really been enjoying is that we started an online forum called Mighty Networks. And in that, it's individual groups where staff want to get on board with us. They can join a group whether they have an interest in fitness, or the movies, and food, the arts, and within those groups, when they go out and do outings and things of that nature, that adds hours to their profile. That helps with local culture, but also it helps give them raises. So let's say, it takes them 100 hours to get to their next pay raise, they can work a $5 job. Based on positive feedback, which is one thing that we do is that we often rate each other, clients and staff. They get points based off that, but if we also do outings, that also gives points to them that helps them get to the next level.
Oh, interesting. Meaning like they're getting points even if they're not working a shift, but they're like participating in the community. Interesting.
That's cool.
That's a good idea.
Very good.
Whitney from San Diego. I have a question for the gentleman. The last thing that you talked about was treating employees better, part of the family, and obviously money is an issue right now, but I just was wondering for you personally what it is that has made a difference that you felt has helped you retain people or better quality staff.
I think it comes from, and this was a big discussion at our kind of executive team meeting. We got out of the habit of having our managers, some of the managers, going out to some of these event sites because we got busy and everyone kind of got into their own thing. I myself personally and all my executive team make it a point that there's always somebody available on site now, whether it's from our staffing team or otherwise, that is going around and we have them literally checking on the staff. How's everything going? Do you have the information that you need? Do you have any issues? Because look, we're not perfect, and we have had event managers that they get stressed and they maybe don't talk very nicely to the staff. And we want to make sure that there's somebody else there that can either diffuse the situation if that does occur or stop it before it happens. So just making sure that you're kind of checking in and they realize that they're not just out there on their own, especially at a large event, that there's somebody else there that's asking them questions. What do you need to do your job? How can we support you? That kind of thing. Every time this has happened and we've gone out to an event like that, either myself or somebody will get an email back, hey, by the way, I worked for whatever staffing agency was there. I just want to tell you, it was really nice that I didn't even know who you were, but you came around, you introduced yourself, so on and so forth, and you get this kind of positive feedback that way. And then we start to see that those people start to sign up for our shifts more often. We're starting to see some of the same people sign up for shifts. So I think it's human nature. If you treat them like a number, then that's what you get. If you treat them like a human, then and you have a conversation, it goes a long way.
David from South Florida. I've been to a couple different markets. My company is not probably my facilities jobs. That might be probably 5 to 10 of them. And I also have a school of autism. Since I'm like making a little twice a week, I involved in my facility. Really saving a lot of labor. They're bringing 10, 12, and they've got 4 job coaches, teaching how to fold bathrooms, clean silverware, set tables, etc. Save much money, save labor. And I've also kept into the kid market. 14, 15, 16-year-olds. The state of Florida, you can hire at 14. And I find out if I probably got about 15 of them on my payroll. They all can't work every weekend, but what I do find out when you get 8 out of 10 of them will be pretty good.
That's
And
brilliant.
if you train them right, you have them for the next 3 years. And their expectations financially are not there. They're happy to have a job. And so when I have a 16 or 18 say come in to book a function, I offer the kid a job right at the spot. And I say, "Would you like a job? It's at the party." And then they bring their kids in, they bring their friends
Way to
in.
recruit.
And next thing you know, because my catering, I'm an on-premise facility. I have some off-premise. They can't do the off-premise, but definitely do the on-premise. And what's really been beneficial that within, I always tell them I have to pay me first for the first 90 days because when I train, they all laugh at it. But the reality, once you train them, they're superstars for the next 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
And they're not looking for the financial concerns. They're just happy to be working and having some money in their pocket. And the flexibility because you don't have to work every weekend, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I just keep on building that portfolio of kids to help me with the adult market and it works.
Yeah, there-
So smart, it's great.
You mentioned the I don't know if you said disabled or whatever, the kids that you're bringing in. I forgot to mention that there is, I guarantee it's in every city. We have it in San Diego now. We have a couple of our,
Vocational rehab.
yeah, exactly.
By the way, is anybody seen who we did put up? Well, if you have, look it up. I actually hired this Down syndrome young gentleman 12 years ago, and when I hired him, he says, "I'm going to be a major movie actor one day." And sure enough, 2 years ago, he's got a co-star actor on Peter Butter Falcon. He still works for me today as a bus person, serving with her, but he actually is a co-star of Peter Butter Falcon. Look it up. It's
Yeah.
kind of a real deal story about hiring specialists.
Yeah, for sure.
Huge market on it. By the way, their taxes have to give $8,000 in credit for it.
Well, in San Diego, the program, they actually pay for the first 1,400 hours, the program does, so it's free labor. Yeah.
Wow.
Which program is that?
It's called, I'll figure it out, I'll look it up, I forget what the name of it, but it's an intern program basically for kids that are having learning disabilities and so forth, in various types. There's autistic kids, there's all sorts of levels. And they come in and check out your workplace and so forth. So we have one of them just started, he's doing dishwashing at one of our places. So, and they're super excited about it, so which is great. So, yeah.
There's a plus.
Yeah.
Two questions on this work. The state of California is required to have RBS certification. And with InstaWork, that is not something that they are guaranteed that you're checking doing that. My other side of the question is, what kind of insurance now are you carrying to protect us on the work comp side? If there is anything. And when you have a contract with venues and places like that, ultimately, if something happens, it's working back to us.
Yeah, so 2 questions there. So one, within California especially, but other states also, we offer either a W-2 option or a 1099 option. The insurance coverage on both of those are different, whether they're a full-time employee or whether they're a 1099 option. And then we also fully indemnify. So we do offer insurance. I can get the details on exactly what we offer, but we also, as part of the contract within InstaWork, is if something happens with that employee, we fully cover and indemnify even outside of that insurance. So I'm not sure if that answers the question or not, but happy to deeper there. And then, yeah, on the certifications, we take each of those case by case, right, and really try to understand. It was a huge concern when the vaccine first came out, right? Like, do you require it? Do you make it optional? Do you require the double booster? Do you leave that open for a partner to say, or do you make it optional or do you make it required for everybody? And so that is something that we're tied through, is like, for each of those types of certifications, A, do we require it for everybody, or B, do we make it an optional partner-driven request? But happy to chat with you after and understand more about that with you, because it is.
Does do that so that we are forced to say we want to use Spark to only use their platform because we're not going to take the chance that we're going to get that legalized
Got it. Yeah, with each of those, we've taken them case by case, and a lot of them, it's a partner-led, right? Rather than saying, hey, every pro has to have it, partners then can decide, like we did with the vaccine, to say, I only want people that are vaccinated on site, or actually this partner could say, doesn't matter to me. And so yeah, let's catch up off-site, would love to understand that.
Anyone else?
We have about 5 minutes left. Any other questions, or anybody else want to share anything else that they're doing that was really helpful?
What do you think consumer goods possibly be in the smaller markets?
Do you have one in mind? We are opening 10 to 15 more markets this year.
Well, I thought of Winona, Minnesota, so very small.
Could be a little longer. It's a good question. A lot of what we're focused on, right, because it's a two-sided marketplace, right, we want to make sure that we have enough workers in that market and then also enough partners. Because if we don't have enough partners, a worker's going to open the app, they're only going to have one shift available every other month, and they're not going to come back to us. And similarly, right, if we open it up to our catering partners, but there's not enough workers, then you'll find somebody else. And so we're actively going through now to try to understand what are the next 10 to 15 markets that will open. Most of them will be primarily more the larger MSAs for now, but trying to understand how can we get people to travel, right? Or somebody that's maybe in a major metro to come a little bit outside of that. And so it's gonna be a little while longer until we're some of the smaller markets, I think, but we have a big geographic expansion plan for this year.
Hi, Kim from Los Angeles. I know you touched on it briefly, but the disparity between the wages is huge in Los Angeles. So temps are making $45 an hour. Our staff is bringing in $25 to $30 an hour. We actually even had one of our staff call in sick for an event because they also work for a temp agency and come back as the temp to make more money, which is incredible. How do you, besides marking up what you're charging for the events, how do you combat that? I mean, I wish I could say, please don't talk to each other.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
That's a big disparity. I'll be honest with you. I mean, our disparity is like $5 to $10, but to have a $20, $30 disparity, that's super difficult. It sounds like to me that if you guys are willing to pay probably $55 you're probably paying $55 or more. Well, it's a 40% markup usually. I mean, that is a ridiculous amount that you're willing to spend, that you have the money to spend, and if you're not compensating your staff better than at $25 an hour or whatever it is that you're doing, then that sounds like for me, it's a financial issue. That's how I mean, that'd be my first level. I mean, you can't combat that many dollars. And you will continue to have those problems because they're all super smart. They are way smarter than we all.
I mean, I kind of like the way you tiered it, right? Because RNet chefs, if it's a chef in our kitchen, they're
Yep.
making less money than when they're on events.
Yep.
But still not that much.
Yeah, not that much. Well, so again, if you're willing to pay, I am willing to pay my staff, any of my staff, as much as they would get paid at an event. I'm willing to do that because if I don't, then that's a supersonic problem.
You mean an agency? You'll pay them as much as you pay the agency people?
No, I'll pay them as much as they would get paid by an agency.
Right.
So if I'm paying $35 an hour to an agency and their staff are going to get 25, let's say,
Right.
I'm willing to pay my staff 25.
Right. Well, and we would too. It's just that we don't have staff. Like, I don't have enough staff.
Right. So then but you're willing to pay your staffing company.
Yeah, we're like stuck paying. I mean, we're just forced to pay it because I
Yeah.
need 10 more people this week than before.
Well, so you're going to have to bridge it somehow with probably a combination because it's such a big gap. You're probably going to have to bridge it. You don't necessarily have to close it all the way, but you're going to have to bridge it in some other way. Even with a bonus program, if you have a fair number of staff, create a bonus program. Do a step plan where you're giving them some extra cash to go to the event, and then also a little bit longer term, 3 months, go to this many events because you need them. You need a lot of them. Then give them a bonus. Have something where you track it, give them a bonus. Figure out what they want.
You're going to have to close the gap one way or another.
Yeah, you have to close it.
So, and if they know that you're paying outside more than they're getting paid, you're going to have to make it up to them somehow.
Somehow.
So, and you should, I'm assuming you're doing this, but when you're budgeting with your clients, one, I think the biggest thing is educate your clients up front that, look, this is the price, this is the cost of labor. They all see it in the news, they all know what it is, but make sure you're having that conversation with them, and you should be billing your clients at that, whatever top rate would be, not at what you're—
For the whole, as much as you can, for all the new events.
Then you're covered. So, but if you start to, let's say you're billing the client at $40 or $50 an hour, whatever it is, and you're paying your staff 20, your current staff are going to figure out that you're making money on that. So it works once or twice, but then they're going to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
So you're going to have to bridge that gap for the time being, at least.
yeah. Somehow through benefits, through money, benefits.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of it can be the camaraderie and the family and all that good stuff, but not a whole lot of it because they all get it.
Yeah.
Something that's been really helpful for me, I built out my staff, about 9% by using Facebook group. So I'm from Philadelphia, so we were Philadelphia hospitality group for industry workers and also got some photos and just go on there and post. And now they're like part-time and full-time staff. And it's just been amazing. They came from awesome restaurants that are now closed for trying their name with catering. And Philadelphia still has an tax mandate, we still have tax where tax from the restaurant. So it's been a little bit difficult for some of those services that we speak with not. So we're just able to find staff now. But it's been helpful. I guess the question for you guys is, how are you handling if you have to handle the tax mandate?
We've had to pay the vax
More.
people more. So if they were unvaxxed, there may be and we can use them at an event that didn't require it, then they get paid a certain rate. And then those that were vaccinated got a little kicker, it was a couple bucks an hour. But California is not much different. It's not quite QR code-ish different, but it is difficult. So.
And we charged our client more. And that was easy. That was outside of the contract. If the contract was, 9 months old, we still were charging them more because ours were just asking for it because, again, Wild West, Texas didn't, do anything. But the clients would ask for it and we would charge them more. But still, you still had to find them. Oh, Lord.
One thing that we do is block those people that they want to pick up a shift in the tech agency and come work
Yeah.
with us. It's too easy, I'm sorry. If you want to work with us, you want a friendly, environment and know what you're doing because you've been trained by us, you stick with us. If you want to go $45 an hour, you go work with somebody else and you do this for you.
Yeah.
So that's first. Second, I really understand the struggle because they all know that we pay tax more. The problem is I cannot afford the clients don't want to pay more labor. We're already coming high in a lot for laborers. I like to send a tax service, so I usually put extra labor. So really coming high, I cannot pay. The client will not pay for more. And so what am I going to do? I will never have a permanent staff again because people go work for InstaWorks Quick or those because they get more money. And I cannot afford to pay as much as them. And me raising the matching up, I cannot afford it. And I use greedy temps twice a week, once a week. So all the rest of the week that I still have events, I'm saving. I cannot afford to pay like the whole week, $25 an hour each. So it's I don't. But
So you are actually, you're using your full-time staff the predominant amount of your time, correct?
I'm trying to.
Yeah. So, that's a great mind space to be in. I mean, that was kind of like where we used to be in. We had to shift it because we couldn't maintain the events that we had booked. So kind of pre-COVID, the reschedules, and then whatever was going on. And we thought everybody, that people would come back to work. That's why we were in such a pickle in the fourth quarter of last year. Power to you if you can keep it going. We have kind of gone to where we just say no. We're in the year of 2022 is the year, you just say no. And we have said no to a lot of unprofitable business. And unprofitable is it's a different version of unprofitable. And it's unprofitable because of the cost of staff. And if we can't staff it properly with good people and get it cooked and get it out the door, then we're not taking the business. So we're doing both. We're having to say no, and we're having to use staffing companies. And our business we're booking the business at the right price based upon the current pressure. It's not that you can't afford it, it's not that it's because you're not charging for it. And we're at the top of our market as well. And people are begging us to take jobs. They're begging us to take the jobs, and they're like, I don't care what it costs. I'm like, okay. So, and that's not going to happen in every market, I get it. But so you just kind of have to continuously, like you said, it's like you're going to have to continuously recalibrate what is right for today. It's going to probably be different than what it was yesterday. But again, power to you. Keep at it. Keep trying. But just educating your client from the very beginning. They're reading the same news that we're all reading. There's yeah. Correct.
But sometimes you need to let that, I'll tell you, sometimes you need to let that business go, and you may lose that one, and then what's happened, they're not going to like what they got, and eventually then those people all come back. So, and if they don't come back, that's not the client for you. You could spend your time on somebody you're going to actually make money on. So, and there's a profit margin there. Some
Yeah.
people just don't have the budget that if they can't afford your service, they can't. So.
All right, we're getting the Oscar music from the side
Yeah.
to wrap up. Thank you. Available for questions. If you guys have anything else to share, feel free to come grab one of us. The Instawork team's around today, throughout the rest of the week, the trade show, if there are specific questions that we can help answer or follow up on. And I know that Leslie and John are happy to do the same. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Tapping's a hot
Thank
topic.
you.
And thank
The
you.
QR code.
Oh, QR code. There's a QR code outside the door. If you scan it, you can give feedback about the session.
Thank y'all.